And I'll reconvene the regular meeting of Monday, July 13th, 2026. Before we get underway, we'd like to acknowledge that this meeting's been held on the homeland of the Tanaka people. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda of the regular council meeting of Monday, July 13th, 2026? Move, please, Councillor Stetson, Councillor Bassett. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Can I get a motion to adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting on Monday, June 22nd, 2026? Mover, please. Councillor Ray, Councillor Popoff. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. We'll move right into delegations tonight. We have one delegation this evening. We have Mike McPhee, Executive Director for Visit Cranbrook, is here to give us a presentation regarding a 5-year renewal application to the province to continue the MRDT collection and destination management activities for the city of Cranbrook. Mike, the floor is yours. Welcome. I'll show you how everything works up there. We'll see. So thank you for having me.
Need to turn. Thanks, Wayne. That always helps. Before I get going, thank you very much for having me, Mayor and Council. And also, I'd like to publicly thank Christy Jan, my predecessor, for doing such a great job building Visit Cranbrook into what it is today. And as someone who studies DMOs all over the place and has worked with a bunch, they're not all built the same. So she has done a fantastic job of laying the foundation and deserves some public thanks, I think. So anyway, I'm going to start off at the top of the industry and kind of whittle our way down to, the details of what we'll be doing in the next 9 months, I guess. So what is a tourist? That's kind of, it might seem obvious, but we like to use the UN's definition, and this will make more sense when we talk about, where the money comes from, really. Someone who has traveled more than 80 kilometers for more than 24 hours. So that's kind of the definition we use as who's spending the money. Who do we consider a tourist? We can add day trippers in there as well. They do add to any visitor economy, but for the most part, we'll be talking about people that come more than 80 kilometers for more than 24 hours. To start off big picture again, the global tourism economy is worth about $11 trillion, so quite massive. One of the biggest economies in the world, really. In Canada, about 129 billion. This was 2024, up 3.5% from 2023. So one of the fastest growing parts of the Canadian economy currently. Drilling down into BC, this is quite a big number, as you can see, 23 billion annual revenue. And then we can see how it's broken out into food and beverage, accommodation, transportation, recreation, and retail. Most tourism businesses are actually small businesses, little known fact, especially in BC. So, there's about 17,000 tourism businesses just in BC. Over 113,000 employed. And if we look at the numbers below, for employment across the economy, quite staggering numbers, really, I think. And then if we drill down into GDP, tourism is by far the largest part of the BC economy, dwarfing many of the other kind of traditional economic drivers in BC. In the Kootenays, what does this mean? The last data we have is from 2023, and it was about 1.3 billion for the Kootenays. I think it's likely going to be about 2 billion this year. That's kind of what we're expecting. If we drill down into Cranbrook a little further, this is kind of a rough calculation, but going off of the collected MRDT and then kind of extrapolating to about 20 million in accommodation revenue. And then extrapolating further with the kind of known tourism percentage of about 30 to 40% of visitor spending is on accommodation, we can comfortably say, I think the low end for Cranbrook is about 60 million a year in visitor spending. So significant, I would say. I like to show this slide, and you'll notice the Cranbrook tourism is not Visit Cranbrook. I actually made this before I started the job and before the new branding, so bear with me. But you know, this really gives a sense of the ecosystem that we're kind of working in. Yes, it is overcomplicated. It's a big, complicated visitor economy we have in BC. On the left, you can see the 4 levels of DMOs. So everything from the local CDMO, that's us, to Kootenay Rockies, Destination BC, and Destination Canada. And we work with all of these organizations, by the way. So that's another kind of big part of what we do is collaborating with many of these. Chambers of Commerce, of course, are a big part. There's various tourism associations, Canada and BC. These associations really are advocates for the industry. They don't necessarily promote, but they kind of help steer government policy and lobby. At the very center, of course, are the visitors, and that's who we're always concerned with. There's provincial visitor centers all over. We have one, and you help fund it. So it's what we consider one of the services a destination offers. Parks are a big part of what we do, and municipalities, of course, and then we also deal with various ministries. On the right, you'll see all kinds of associations. So everything from F&B, BC, Canada, hotel associations, pretty much every outdoor activity has an association of some sort, and we deal with many of them. In BC, we also have co-op funding that's from Destination BC. So these are groups like Fishing BC, Paddle BC, and we collaborate with them. We participate in their marketing. So it's really a collaborative industry, and there's a lot of co-op funding available where we're able to multiply our dollars through these co-op funds, which is quite important. Now we'll drill down a little bit into MRDT. So I think most of you know it's a form of PST legislated in the 80s. Its main function is to fund tourism destination marketing. So when you read the legislation and the policies, it's really in the spirit of promoting a destination to people to come and visit. There's about 70 MRDT collection areas across BC. This changes yearly. About 25 are municipalities, 9 are regional districts, and there's about 36 DMOs. So about 60% of designated recipients are not municipalities. Designated recipients must develop a 5-year strategy and an annual tactical plan. So that's kind of what we've started the process for already. 2018, the designated usage was expanded to include affordable housing. The caveat there is that only the percentage collected from those online accommodation platforms can be used for affordable housing. The next slide will show how much that's worth in Cranbrook. And also in 2022, the province started holding back 2.5% of the MRDT from our area for a destination events fund. So that's taken out of what is collected by our accommodators in the municipality. Now, these are the gross numbers. I know that in the past we've shown net numbers, and that's what's available on the city's website. I wanted to show these gross numbers just so we could look at some totals over the past 8 years. So these are lifetime totals from 2018 to 2025. Net payments altogether about 3.7 million. Administration fees 24, outstanding or tourism event deduction 246,000. So this is what's been taken out of the MRDT collected here for that events fund I was talking about. And then the OAP, that's the online accommodator disbursement amount, over the last 8 years would equal about $75,000 right now. I also did a little investigating to see who was getting these destination event funds. And there's 3 applicants locally this year, Kootenay Rockies Grand Fondo, the PGA Championships, and Rockies Fest received those amounts. So the events need to be at a certain size in order to apply for the fund. You know, this is something we could probably lobby to kind of reduce the minimum spend. I think it's $150,000 you need for a budget for an event to apply for the funding. So that's probably quite high in my opinion. So that's something we may want to lobby for in the future. Just a little map to show what we're dealing with across the province. So these are all MRDT areas. Most of them, as you can see, are quite large and include either one or multiple regional districts. If you look in the far right to Cranbrook, you can see we're one of the smaller MRDT areas. What does this mean from a competitive point of view? You know, we're dealing with many places that have a much higher budget is what it comes down to. So, you know, some of our regional partners / competitors, you know, Fernie, I think they're about 1.3 million, Golden 1.7, I want to say, and Revelstoke up around 2 million in MRDT collected. So, you know, we're, you know, and if you consider Banff, I mean, they have something like a $20 million marketing budget. So if you look regionally in this corner of BC, we're up against some tough competition. And I'd like you to keep that in mind as we speak further about, you know, usage of MRDT. Additional prescribed purposes. I know there's been a bit of discussion around this. You know, I'd point out that anything's possible and we're here to collaborate. There are a few rules though for the application and additional prescribed purposes. I guess the main one would be you need to prove stakeholder agreement. You need to prove that it's something that the community wants, that industry stakeholders want, and build a case around that. So it's got to primarily benefit visitors rather than residents. And this is pulled right from the application text. The submission must include a comprehensive business plan outlining project description, timeline, and budget. So it needs to be well thought out and agreed upon by the stakeholders. A little bit about our budget. I didn't put the numbers here, but you know, these are our big ticket items within our budget: wages, advertising, collateral, all the print stuff we still do. Our maps are super popular. The website, of course, we just had a redesign, which I think is amazing. We do attend a couple consumer shows. We do a fair bit of media actually, and this is in partnership with Destination BC and Kootenay Rockies for the most part. Collaborative co-op marketing that I spoke about. Consumer asset development, so that's creating videos and photos and all kinds maps and all kinds of stuff. Destination development and training, so we're engaged with that along with our partners as well. Events and local sponsorships. The current budget's about $30,000, and we've given to about 25 local organizations annually on average. And then visitor services, of course. We do spend a fair bit of budget on top of what we get from the municipality as well. Administration, HR, of course, finance, IT, office, all the stuff you would expect. Visitor center, you know, it's people often ask, you know, do we need them still? What's the point? I would say it's an essential part of a community's mandate to have ambassadors. It's really a visitor service. It's really, and I think we've all been to Elizabeth Lake on a busy day. You're answering a lot of questions. You're, you know, servicing visitors that are looking for something to do, right? So it's a little bit of a sales tactic. It's a service. It's a community service. Our ambassadors, of course, our volunteer ambassadors are very passionate about their role, and it's part of a a BC-wide network. So we have 1 full-time manager, 3 seasonal staff, and about 25 volunteers currently. Mouth's getting dry. So what is my focus in the short term? Really the renewal is kind of priority. We've already started it. We've engaged a consultant to help us with engagement, stakeholder engagement, and some of the planning. We have an existing 1-year tactical plan, so we need to fulfill that and start working on the next one. Collaborative partnerships, I've spoken about that a fair bit already, but local, regional, provincial, stakeholder engagement and needs. We're really here to serve the stakeholders and community. So I do take that role quite seriously. One of the things I came in talking about was the MICE sector and doing a bit of a pivot. I know it's a weird acronym, but basically meetings, conferences, events, sport tournaments. I really see this as a low-hanging economic fruit, and I really see it as a way to make the cash registers ring all across the local economy, really. I think we've all seen when the soccer tournament comes to town, for a weekend and how busy it gets, hotels to restaurants to retail. So there's a whole strategy that I would like to put together, working collaboratively with the city as well as other organizations, and put more of a focus on that. It is actually one of the most it's one of the most successful parts of many tourism economies, depending on where you are. If you're not a big famous destination, many destinations around the world focus on this sector. And then, I'm going to do a little bit of a feasibility study on expanding the collection area to include Area C. I know this has been talked about in the past, and in order to stay relevant and competitive, it might be a good idea. So that's the short term. My impression on arriving, is that Visit Cranbrook is a fine-tuned, well-structured, high-functioning organization. We are respected tourism professionals in a large, complex industry. We are here to serve our stakeholders and community as a strong economic pillar. Did I go over time? Am I okay? Anyway,
thank you, Mike.
yeah, I'd love to have some
Pretty
questions.
sure somebody will have comments or questions here, Council. Well, okay, Councillor Peabody and Councillor Stetsky.
Thank you, Mayor. Mike, now that you're in the new role, what is your vision for the future of Cranbrook tourism?
Well, yeah, big question. It is day 16, I'll remind. But yeah, I really see the MICE sector that I was just describing as being an area where there's great economic potential without having to build and spend a lot of money, right? Because it's about filling current facilities, making all the facilities a little busier. We do have quite a bit of conference space in the community, from Alexander Hall to the Prestige to the Heritage Inn, right? So there's quite a bit of space that can be used, and it also encompasses such a wide range of things, and I would say that the type of events that I'm thinking of aren't necessarily risky, in that we have to create something and then we have to sell those tickets, right? I'm talking about things that exist already and bringing them here. Like the PGA is a great example, right? The curling bonspiel a few years ago that occurred. Those are the kinds of things that already exist, and if we can get them and attract them, and I do have some ideas for that, then it's just such an economic boom with those kind of things. And it's everything from weddings to ball tournaments to I would love to see the Canadian Barbecue Championships here myself, but there's many existing things that don't require the risk, like creating our own event and trying to sell it.
You betcha.
Just pick your brain on something here too. If the city has an event that we're organizing, what sort of criteria would determine whether or not Cranbrook Tourism would want to partner with that event? or help support it in one way or another?
Yeah, good question. Well, I would say, I would go back and just think about the spirit of the legislation, the MRDT legislation, and the policies that are in place at the provincial level, and just say, things that draw people in are kind of what we're mandated with working on. So I would say there's a difference between an event that's designed to attract people and one that's designed for local interest and fun. So, I'd say we already support a lot of organizations in town with sponsorships, but to get fully engaged, I think we can really work together on things that are kind of designed to really bring people in and create interest from outside of the community.
Great. Councillor Teske.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So first of all, congratulations. I think
Thank you.
tourism or Visit Cranbrook's in good hands. One of the things that I've said for many years is what makes a community to live into a livable community is the addition of arts and culture. So how important currently are arts and culture, do you think, for tourism, and what more would you like to see coming from the arts community?
Yeah, good question. As well as having a career in tourism, I've grown up in the arts and been an artist myself, so I definitely know that side as well. I would say there is a sector in tourism that's attracted to arts and culture, and I guess that's a pretty big bucket. But I know that we have shows at Key City Theatre that attract people from outside of the community. That's a great example. Art shows. Art events. I was involved in Golden in the arts community there, and we purposely designed some art events to attract people from the outside as well. So I would say it's a great fabric of the local community and a great opportunity to be one of the things that attracts people. When I travel, I seek the artists out and seek out locally made things. And I really think there's a big market for that. So, I can see that being, it's already part of our marketing, but, increasing that even and working with the arts community to better showcase that, I would say.
Councillor Popoff.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Mike. So the Downtown Business Association is having a resurgence with getting more involved with interest and activities in our downtown area. Chamber, another big part of how business and entertainment and economic tourism occurs. We have a new director with Parks and Culture here in Cranbrook City. Yourself new as well. So this coalition of the willing, if you will, how do you see some of that playing out, and what would Visit Cranbrook's role be?
Yeah, I look forward to working with all those groups you just mentioned, and I've met with several people already from existing organizations. So, I think a few different ways. I'd say our strategic plan that we're going to work on will include partnering with those organizations. Our one-year tactical plans, already do to a certain extent, but there's room to grow there. I think the Chamber and Downtown Business Association and the city are kind of what we're going to need to push what I was talking about with MICE, especially, right? So I see creating some sort of task force that's looking at those opportunities and working together to really push all businesses in the same direction. I haven't met with the Downtown Business Association, but I plan to shortly, and I look forward to that. And I did meet Lars, and so I think we can work together on many things and collaborate. So, what I've learned in this industry is that it really is collaboration. You need people and businesses and a community rowing in the same direction to really push things forward. So, that's kind of my mandate, and that's what I look forward to as well.
Well, and just further, I mean, of all those agencies you mentioned, they have their own, what's in the front of them and what's off the side of the desk. But for Visit Cranbrook, this is what's in front of you. So we're, your staff and the board and everything, they're the experts, if you will, in the community on what is the best economic tourism. I think to then bring in all the other partners to then coordinate it all.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mike, a quick question. Your strategic plan. So once your application is renewed, new strategic plan, where do you see the city involvement? What level of involvement? How involved will a city representative be involved with this strategic plan?
Well, there's already a plan in place to involve the city with the strategic planning. I know we're already working on a bit of a questionnaire on, what people think currently and what they'd like to see. So the city will be involved with that. I would say many of the things I want to do would heavily involve the city as a strong partner. Like I'll go back to MICE one more time and just say, that needs full city engagement, support, and collaboration for that end of kind of new business. We can talk about beautification. We can talk about revitalizing the downtown. Those are all things that we'll work together on, is what I'm hoping. And I mean, pretty much everything we do involves the city to some point, I would say, from Elizabeth Lake to our downtown visitor center to downtown itself to all the facilities around town, right? So I see the need for a very strong partnership.
Great. Yeah, certainly, your perspective, working with local business and whatnot. Really, City of Cranbrook now, we're out of the entertainment business. So we made a decision here in the last year that we will not be dealing firsthand in the entertainment business. So we're relying on the private sector to step in, and any type of concerts, big shows like that, it would be up to the private sector. Certainly the city will play a role in there. There's in-kind services and things like that we can be involved in. So yeah, I think that fits very well with your view of how your organization is going to fit with the community. So
Yeah,
really looking forward to it.
great.
Great.
No more questions? I didn't even have to use the new guy card with any of those. So thanks. Okay.
Great, Mike.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, looking forward to working with you. Moving into bylaws. First bylaw for consideration is from Engineering Development Services regarding zoning bylaw amendment number 4246 2026 for 217 16th Avenue North. This bylaw is back before council for adoption tonight. Can I get a motion that council adopt City of Cranbrook zoning amendment bylaw number 4246 2026? Mover, please. Councillor Ray, Councillor Bissett. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Next bylaw for consideration is also from Engineering Development Services regarding subdivision and development servicing amendment bylaw number 4250 2026. This bylaw is back tonight for adoption as well. Can I get a motion that council adopt subdivision and development servicing amendment bylaw number 4250 2026? Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Graham. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Next up is bylaw from Bylaw Enforcement Services regarding unsightly premise amendment bylaw number 4251 2026. Bylaw is here tonight for first, second, and third reading, and we will have Amanda give us a brief overview of the report. Amanda.
Thank you very much. Good evening. On the June 8th regular council meeting, council directed staff to bring forward an amendment to the unsightly premises bylaw to include the definition and enforcement provisions for graffiti. The proposed bylaw amendment defines graffiti as writing or pictures scratched, painted, or drawn by any means on a wall, fence, sign, building, or structure of any kind, but does not include public art murals that may be approved by the property owner of the city. The proposed amendment prohibits graffiti from being placed on or to remain on a property that is visible from a public place or a highway or roadway. Graffiti has become an increasing issue throughout the community. The existing unsightly premises bylaw does not reference graffiti, meaning there are currently no enforcement provisions. Graffiti can negatively impact community perception of safety, contribute to a sense of disorder, and affect the enjoyment of surroundings and the value of surrounding properties. Adding graffiti provisions to the unsightly premises bylaw will establish clear expectations for property owners and provide enforcement mechanisms where applicable and when voluntary compliance is not achieved. We recognize that there is a financial burden on the property owner to remove graffiti, and that the graffiti is typically, the property owner is typically victim of mischief. And so bylaw services would seek opportunities for voluntary compliance prior to enforcement. In general, bylaw services will take a complaint-based approach to addressing graffiti, meaning bylaw services may not proactively enforce the graffiti bylaw unless the graffiti is something that would be considered vulgar in nature. And following the bylaw compliance and enforcement procedure, graffiti would be considered a priority 3, so a lower level priority. And that would be relative to matters involving public safety, health, nuisance, and other higher risk bylaw issues.
Thank you, Amanda. Can I get a motion that council give first reading to unsightly premises amendment bylaw number 4251, 2026? Mover, please. Councillor Bissett, Councillor Popoff. Discussion, Councillor Bissett, Councillor Popoff. Councillor Bissett, Councillor Peabody, sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. So with regard to graffiti, does it also include, say, writing or things that an owner may have put on their fence? Or that, because we have run into that before when there's been fighting between different neighbors and they've put up antagonistic signs or whatever towards the neighbor. Can you comment on that, please?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Bissett, through the mayor. The way the bylaw amendment is written, it would be graffiti at which the owner has not given permission. So if the owner has given permission or has placed that on themselves, it would not be considered graffiti within the way the bylaw is written.
So further to that, so then how would we deal with that? Because it has happened in my time. And so, I mean, we got the RCMP involved, but there was still more or less they had to, you know, be willing to do it themselves. But I would think there could be an opportunity in this bylaw to, I don't know how you word it, but to have provision for that too. Because, you know, there's some nasty messages out there. I see nasty messages on people's trucks, but I'm not asking you to enforce that. Just, but I mean, it's not out of the ordinary for that to happen.
Thank you, Councillor Bissett, through the mayor. So neighborhood disputes is something not uncommon to bylaw services or the RCMP. It is something that we do see frequently. In many cases, not always, the dispute or the outcome of the dispute isn't necessarily something within the bylaw that we can enforce. So in that case, we may look at other measures, alternative measures, such as we could potentially use restorative justice if both individuals were willing to participate. You know, sometimes it's a conversation with both owners. Staff could look at the wording of the and definition of graffiti in the amendment and bring something back to council at a later date if preferred.
Councillor Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. Amanda, you mentioned the vulgar graffiti, and one location where I've noticed some of that is the Cranbrook Skate Park. Would that fall under this bylaw as well?
So Councillor Peabody, through the mayor, thank you. We would, of course, as a city, like to comply with our bylaws as well. So yes, potentially. I know that I believe Jill from Public Works was working on a project with some youth to paint over some of the graffiti and make them into nice murals. So that's a good option. My understanding is that the skate park falls under rec and culture. And so the maintenance and removal of graffiti would fall to Rec and Culture and may require some budget to do so.
Yeah, and I will say too that the work that Jill is doing with the students is great, and yeah, being sort of in the industry, we're getting lots of compliments on it. So thank you.
Councillor Stetsky.
Thank you, Mayor. Is there a proposed penalty schedule to go along with this?
Councillor Stetsky through the mayor. Yes, there is. If this bylaw is given 3 readings, we will bring forward that bylaw in later this evening.
Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I think it's positive to see this coming forward. I wish we didn't have to deal with graffiti, but we do. And so I think this is a good step forward. And I really appreciate the focus on support and education. And as we've acknowledged, it's unfortunate that the financial burden falls on the local business owners. I just wanted to mention quickly that one of our nonprofits in town, the Fresh Start Society, is working on a social enterprise idea to train vulnerable folks to gain skills in graffiti removal, and that they are hoping to offer that as a service to the community, to be paid for that, and then be able to support their clients in gaining employable skills. So I think that's a real positive. And if anyone's interested in talking to Fresh Start about that opportunity, I think that would be a worthwhile conversation.
Councillor Popoff.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So in the eye of the beholder, offensive graffiti versus artwork, who makes that decision?
Councillor Popoff through the mayor. So that is a great question, and it's certainly an interesting topic, and it's been a topic of conversation amongst other communities, bylaw services, and other communities, because sometimes you're right, in the eye of the beholder, is it graffiti or is it art? So, we've done our best in the proposed bylaw amendment to define graffiti. With that said, it would be likely bylaw services. And so again, this would be a compliance-based approach, not a proactive approach either.
Thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Can I get a motion that council give second reading to unsightly premises bylaw amendment bylaw number 4251 2026? Mover, please. Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Bissett. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And can I get a motion that council give third reading to unsightly premises amendment bylaw number 4251 2026? Councillor Graham, Councillor Popoff. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Amanda. Next bylaw is from Engineering Development Services regarding municipal ticketing information system amendment bylaw number 4252 2026. The bylaw is before council tonight for first, second, and third reading as well. Can I please have staff? Who do we have? Curtis on hand to give us a brief overview.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm bringing forward the MTIS amendment bylaw to include the subdivision development service and amendment bylaw that was just adopted. It'll also include increasing fines to the development procedures and delegation bylaw for mostly doing work without proper permits. In the unfortunate part, we get to a point where somebody's not working with us or voluntarily complying with the bylaws.
Curtis. Can I get a motion that council give first reading to municipal ticketing information system amendment bylaw number 4252 2026? Councillor Lissette, Councillor Peabody. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Can I get a motion that council give second reading to municipal ticketing information systems amendment bylaw number 4252 2026? Councillor Ray, Councillor Popoff. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And can I get a motion that council give third reading to municipal ticketing information system amendment bylaw number 4252 2026? Councillor Graham, Councillor Bissett. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Up next, for consideration, tonight's a bylaw from the CO's office regarding Council Code of Conduct bylaw number 4253, 2026. This bylaw is back before council tonight for adoption. Can I get a motion that council adopt Council Code of Conduct bylaw number 4253, 2026? Mover, please. Councillor Ray, Councillor Statsky. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thanks, guys. And thank you, Mark. And Bradley, thank you so much for that. Next up is from Engineering Development Services regarding bylaw notice enforcement amendment bylaw number 4254, 2026. This bylaw is before council tonight for first, second, third reading. Can I have staff give us an overview of that? We got Amanda. Yep. Welcome back, Amanda.
Thank you, Mayor Price. So this bylaw amendment is in relation to the unsightly premises bylaw amendment. The bylaw notice enforcement bylaw number 4029 from 2021, 4049 from 2021 requires amendment to include enforcement penalty for graffiti. In the amending bylaw, the base penalty is $150 for graffiti, which is in line with other offenses under the unsightly premises bylaw. The amendment also includes an early payment option of $100 and a late payment penalty of $200, also in line with other offenses within the unsightly bylaw.
Stuff. Can I get a motion that council give first reading to bylaw notice enforcement amendment bylaw number 4254, 2026? Councillor Statsky, Councillor Bissett. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Can I get a motion that council give second reading to bylaw notice enforcement amendment bylaw number 4254, 2026? Councillor Popoff, Councillor Ray. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And can I get a motion that council give third reading to bylaw notice enforcement amendment bylaw number 4254, 2026? Over, please. Councillor Bissett, Councillor Graham. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Amanda. Next bylaw for consideration is also from Engineering Development Services regarding official community plan amendment bylaw number 4255, 2026 at 128 4th Avenue South. This bylaw is before council tonight for first reading. Can I have staff give us a brief overview of this? We have Connor.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a application to do an OCP mapping amendment and subsequently a rezoning amendment. Tonight we'll just focus on the first reading of the OCP map amendment. So this is for 128 4th Avenue South, which is a piece of land that's located just outside of the downtown area and just about 25 meters south of the Highway 95. The current designation is highway commercial. However, on the property currently, there's a residential legally non-conforming use, which is just used as a residential single-family dwelling. There's two parcels for which there's one title. So both of these parcels are coming forward for the redesignation from highway commercial. So the applicant has requested that the property be redesignated from highway commercial to infill residential and subsequently at a later council meeting from C2 to R1. Very simply, that's what this one is about.
Thank you, Connor. Can I get a motion that council give first reading to City of Cranbrook Official Community Plan or Path to 2042 Amendment Bylaw number 4255, 2026, and authorize staff to undertake public consultation on the proposed amendment bylaw? Mover, please. Councillor Graham. Councillor Bissett. Discussion. Councillor Statsky.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question. Is it Highway 95 or is it actually Highway 3?
That is a good question. Highway 3 and 95 and Van Horn Street, I think. You want to add that?
All right. All right. Thank you.
Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thanks, Connor.
Thanks.
Next up is also from Engineering Development Services regarding official community plan amendment bylaw number 4257, 2026 for housekeeping amendments. This bylaw is before council tonight for first and second reading. Can I have council please, or pardon me, staff give us a brief overview of the report? Rob?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is just an amendment that staff is bringing forward as a result of, implementing and using our OCP the past year and change since the adoption. One thing that we notice as we work on applications is we find things that need to be fine-tuned and tweaked. And this amendment is primarily addressing various development permit exemptions that exist in our OCP in the various development permit areas. Which we didn't necessarily pick up on the original draft or didn't think there would have been a concern. But as we've been implementing, we started noticing a couple things that didn't fit with the goal of the purpose of the OCP. And so some of the changes that we're looking at proposing are one, clarifying some wording that multi-unit residential development permits are applicable for 5 units or more. That is a result of just a wording change needed because now we're allowed up to 4 dwelling units on every property in Cranbrook, so eliminating the need for development permits for every single construction up to a 4-plex. Clarifying the exemptions in the highway commercial and neighborhood commercial development permit, where currently it allows for repair, maintenance of renovations or structures to existing legal buildings. But we did an amendment under the previous housekeeping amendment where we added some wording where the exterior appearance of a building or structure remains unchanged. I think the original intent is there, but under the broad repair, maintenance, or renovation can involve any manner of different things that a person could do to a building without requiring a development permit. So this would clarify that those activities can still happen provided they don't change the exterior appearance, so the facade or something, under which then we would expect a facade development permit. There was a number of development permit areas that had an exemption that would permit the construction of building additions up to 100 square meters, which is over 1,000 square feet. Again, depending on the context, 1,000 square foot addition to a building is quite significant. So we felt that the intent of the development permit is being missed with that one, and that a person should apply for a development permit. So we can go through the development permit guidelines. A number of the areas also exempted signs from requiring development permits. We're just removing signs altogether as those are managed through the sign bylaw, and we don't have development permit guidelines for signs. And then we also had an exemption that spoke to deleting the activity of subdivision from requiring a steep slopes development permit, which again, subdivision is a significant component of development, and if there is designated steep slopes, a steep slopes development permit should be dealt with at subdivision. That's when an engineer should review it and provide that information as part of the plan. And then clarifying some language in the riparian foreshore to state that the exemption can apply where work or activities occur outside the 15 meters, not within 15 meters of a water course, where the wording was not within the riparian area. It was vague. So now we're being much more clear that it's 15 meters from the actual water body. And then in the wildfire, we're adding an exemption to allow the rebuilding of an accessory building or structure within the same footprint. So again, not needing a development permit for reconstruction of something that's existing. And then the last two, so updating the aquifer protection development permit area to specifically identify that a Schedule 2 use is the trigger that would require an aquifer development permit. And those are those kind of, we call them the nasty uses identified by the Ministry of Environment, which we would want to have a development permit for to ensure that we can try and minimize or mitigate any potential impacts on our aquifer. So it is specific to those Schedule 2 uses. And lastly, we have seen this map before, but we'd like to update the highway commercial development permit area map, as there were some properties that were accidentally omitted during the first round of the OCP, namely things like the Walmart Plaza, the mall. There are on the highway, but because they weren't zone C2 and they captured all the C2 properties, so we're adding those, as well as adding the C6 Mission Hills Golf Course property to the highway corridor development permit area. So activities would require a development permit for that one as well. So we're just kind of capturing some of the ones that were missed with respect to that. And then lastly, just for council's consideration, as you can see, the resolution is a little bit different in that we're recommending just as far as the consultation, just going straight to public hearing, as these are administrative amendments. So doing the extra consultation, we didn't feel it would really add value. And so we're going to meet the requirement for consultation through the public hearing alone. So yeah, if there's any questions, happy to answer.
Well, thanks, Rob. Can I get a motion that council give first reading to City of Cranbrook official community plan, our path to Cranbrook 2042 amendment bylaw number 4257, 2026. Mover, please, Councillor Ray, Councillor Peabody. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thanks very much, Rob. Can I get a motion that council give second reading to City of Cranbrook official community plan, our path to Cranbrook 2042 amendment bylaw number 4257, 2026, and submit to a public hearing to be scheduled for 6:00 p.m. on July 27th, 2026. Councillor Popoff, Councillor Graham. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. You give me the look. Moving on to new business. First item of new business tonight is from Bylaw Enforcement Services regarding the restorative justice pilot program. Amanda, you're busy tonight. Amanda's back on board here.
Thank you, Mayor Price. The purpose of this report is to provide council with information regarding restorative justice, outline the benefits of implementing an in-house restorative justice program, and seek council support to further explore and develop a locally administered internal restorative justice model. Restorative justice, also known as RJ, is an approach to addressing conflict and harm and focuses on healing and repairing relationships. Rather than relying solely on traditional punitive justice measures, RJ provides opportunities for offenders to understand the impact of their actions, take responsibility, and make meaningful amends to victims and the community. RJ programs are commonly used in collaboration with policing agencies, schools, community organizations, and courts to address lower risk offenses, disputes, and community conflicts. RJ is a voluntary process that brings together individuals who have caused harm, those who have been impacted by the harm, and train facilitators to identify appropriate steps towards accountability and resolution. There are many goals of restorative justice, including encouraging offender accountability, supporting victims and giving them a voice in the process that they may not otherwise feel they have through the criminal justice system, and provide alternatives to formal court proceedings. In other words, restorative justice is another means to hold individuals accountable without having to go through a lengthy and costly court process, which also requires significant police resources. Restorative justice services are available through Cranbrook and District Restorative Justice Society. However, their services are currently very limited, externally delivered, and dependent upon their varying levels of capacity. Cranbrook and District Restorative Justice Society is a nonprofit society and relies heavily on grant funding, in-kind supports, and partnership with key stakeholders. Cranbrook and District Restorative Justice Society has reported difficulty in accessing funding, in part due to the time commitment required for the volunteer board to seek out and apply for grants. And as a result, there's been a significant decrease on the ability for Cranbrook and District Restorative Justice Society to deliver restorative justice programs in our community. Further, they've also experienced low police referral rates due to the difficulty in establishing police buy-in to the restorative justice program, with them being an external program versus internal, and the limited ability to share information between the two agencies. It is becoming increasingly time-consuming and difficult to operate programming that relies so heavily on grant funding. A Cranbrook RCMP restorative justice program would provide a more timely, coordinated, and community-focused response while alleviating some of the administrative workload from Cranbrook RCMP members. Rather than preparing a report to Crown Counsel, recommending charges, and preparing evidence for disclosure, police can simply refer a police file to an in-house restorative justice program. The referral process is much easier and faster when it is an in-house program versus external. When the offender or the person who has caused the harm is successful in restorative justice program, there's no need for police to attend court, which is a time-consuming task for police. Further, restorative justice can reduce the likelihood of reoffending, which means it may prevent repeat calls for services for a particular individual for police. An in-house restorative justice program would allow for information sharing between the restorative justice coordinator and police, as the RJ coordinator would work within Cranbrook RCMP detachment with an RCMP security clearance. And so whereas an external restorative justice program would not have access to a police database, and therefore they would receive very limited information from police within the Privacy Act. A restorative justice coordinator at the detachment would have the ability to document the participant's outcome right in the police file, which can be used for consideration by police or Crown Counsel in the future should that individual reoffend. Looking at potential program scope for an in-house restorative justice program, as a pilot, staff recommend a 1-year part-time position funded through external grant funding. The restorative justice coordinator position would be a municipal employee and work at the Cranbrook RCMP detachment. The pilot program would be an opportunity to gather data, such as the number of program referrals, program success rates, and then that would allow the city to evaluate the benefits of a long-term restorative justice program, if the city chooses to do so, possibly funded through the municipal policing budget. An in-house restorative justice program could include referrals from police or bylaw services, such as for neighborhood disputes, youth diversion opportunities, neighborhood and community dispute resolution, minor property offense resolutions, community accountability agreements, facilitation and mediation services, education and outreach initiatives, and partnerships with schools. As Cranbrook RCMP serves both the City of Cranbrook and the Regional District of East Kootenays Area C, staff also recommend approaching RDEK to see if there is interest in establishing a joint restorative justice program and a joint funding model. Should the city choose to move in this direction, should council, choose to move in this direction. If a joint model was not established, then Cranbrook RCMP Restorative Justice Program would only accept referrals from within the municipality. And should council be supportive of establishing an in-house restorative justice program, utilizing grant funding as a means to establish the pilot program may be an effective model in the short term. In the long term, relying again heavily on grant funding can be quite challenging, and so staff would recommend in the long term, again, funding through a regular operating budget. Potential funding sources for grant funding could include federal funding streams, such as the Department of Justice, civil forfeiture, provincial funding streams such as community gaming grant, potentially site funding, among other grant opportunities. Cranbrook RCMP may have the ability to apply for some grant funding that community agencies may not, so such as the site funding. The pilot program, if council is supportive, would be dependent on receiving enough grant funding to operate the program. And this would require approximately 65 to 85,000 in grant funding for a 1-year pilot program. Thank you. That concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great report. So council, the request is for a decision by staff. So we've got 2 options on the table here. 1, to explore the pilot, an option 2, not to pursue the pilot. Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move option 1, please.
Option 1. Seconder, Councillor Bissett. Discussion. Councillor Ray, Councillor Bissett.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much for the report. I, like to say thank you to everyone who's been involved in Cranbrook and District Restorative Justice over the years. They've really done the work to lay the foundation and build awareness of restorative justice in our community. So I really thank them for that. And I think we have an opportunity now to really take restorative justice to the next level in our community. And yeah, the opportunities you've outlined, I think, are very positive and just have a great deal of potential. So I am hopeful that we can move forward with the next step in our exploration. And I just see a ton of benefit for the community.
Councillor Bissett.
Thank you. And no, I'm fully supportive of restorative justice. What I was wondering about, though, is whether or not it would be run through the court system versus the RCMP, because they're the ones that deal with the justice aspect of it. Could you comment on that, please?
Yes, Councillor Blissett through the mayor, that's a great question. This would be a pre-court model, and the reason being a couple of reasons. Rather than police putting together a report to Crown Council and preparing disclosure to go to court, they would simply refer to the in-house restorative justice model. So that saves police time. It can also save the victim from having to participate within a court system. So for restorative justice to go through a court model, and that that is also a possibility through the courts, particularly in the case of youth, it's called extrajudicial sanctions. That would require police putting together the report to Crown Council, preparing all of the evidence, potentially attending court. So it is quite time consuming for police. We also, within restorative justice, when we're using it pre-court, look for opportunities, particularly in the case for youth, when we're seeing youth heading down a path of negative decision making. So maybe not quite down the road of criminality, but potentially heading that way. That's a really good opportunity to divert that youth off of that path using restorative justice as an effective model.
Councillor Stetsky, then Councillor Peabody.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, very supportive of the initiative. Is this a model that's been in place in other communities and that we've been able to learn from?
Councillor Stetsky through the mayor. Yes, that is correct. There are other communities such as Burnaby, Surrey, when it was Surrey RCMP, did have an in-house restorative justice program similar to what I'm proposing here. When I did work with Surrey RCMP for 10 years, I did manage intervention programs, and so restorative justice was one of the programs that I managed under the umbrella of police. So we've seen that it is a successful model. When I had mentioned that referrals from Cranbrook and District Restorative Justice Society were low, referrals from police to Cranbrook and District Restorative Justice Society were low. I can't speak enough about the benefits of having that restorative justice coordinator working in-house, because they can proactively look for files and referrals that maybe members wouldn't even consider, right? They're there at the briefings when they're talking about files. So it's really sort of in the forefront of members' minds. So, yes, to answer your question, we have seen from other communities that this is a model, and a model that works.
Councillor Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. Amanda, you mentioned here that you're going to reach out to the RDK as a possible funding partner. Would it be worth reaching out to like Occam or Ktunaxa Nation as a possible partner as well?
Yeah, Councillor Peabody through the mayor, absolutely. This is an opportunity for some joint partnership, potentially maybe even the school district. If that's the direction we're going. If we do involve other partners, we may need to look at and may not need to look at whether a part-time position is enough. Probably within a one-year pilot program, that would be sufficient. But certainly we could reach out to our other partners to see if there's interest there.
Councillor Popoff.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Amanda, I believe restorative justice is one of the principles that fall under community policing. So we're following within that. It's not something out on the outside.
Councillor Popoff through the mayor. Yes, thank you very much. Restorative justice is one of the priorities for RCMP as a whole, not just Cranbrook RCMP, but the bigger umbrella of RCMP. And it is one of their pillars of strategic planning. So it is very much ingrained within community policing.
Yeah, certainly a lot of thought and a lot of work went into this proposal. It's very evident. I guess, Amanda, I'm looking at the regional model, so a regional district model. Are you thinking all of the communities in the regional district, the other municipalities as well?
Mayor Price, the initial thought was the communities in which Cranbrook RCMP police, so that would be within our municipality or DEK Area C.
Okay, thank you. Do you know if any of the other municipalities in the regional district have a program right now?
Mayor Price, not to my knowledge. They may have utilized Cranbrook and District Restorative Justice Society. I can't say for certain. When police were referring files, again, it would be from whatever files were within their jurisdiction. So outside of Cranbrook and District Restorative Justice Society, I can't say for sure.
Okay, thanks very much. Further? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you so much. The next item is from Engineering Development Services regarding Cranbrook welcome sign along Highway 95A. Can I have staff give us an overview of the report? We've got Darren up.
Thank you.
Welcome,
Thank
Darren.
you. Thank you, Mayor. So we're here today to seek council direction regarding the design and construction of a new welcome sign at the city limits on Highway 95A. At a recent council meeting, council had discussed looking at a welcome sign on Highway 95A, as the current one is far within the city limits near the wastewater lagoons. The Cranbrook Tourism Master Plan provides strategic foundation for enhancing how visitors arrive and experience in the community, including the development of a new civic welcome sign. There are 7 foundational areas inside the tourism plan. Number 1 is arrival and gateways, which calls for targeted investments in how visitors first encounter the city. As I mentioned earlier today, Cranbrook has established gateways on Highway 93 or Highway 95, coming in from Fernie and at Elizabeth Lake, and one at Highway 95. So Highway 95A is the primary road from the Canadian Rockies International Airport, and people traveling towards the city from Kimberley. Advancing a new welcome sign or gateway feature is supported through the Tourism Master Plan. And open up to the floor for questions from council.
Thank you. Can I get a motion that council direct staff to prepare a report outlining options for design, construction, and estimated costs of a new welcome sign on 95A? Mover, please. Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Peabody. Discussion. Councillor Blissett, Councillor Peabody, Councillor Stetsky. You know what we'll do? We'll go around this way and come around this way. Okay. Yeah.
So this is going to be tricky, because if you put it out at Shadow Mountain, nobody's going to think they're in the city. If you put it out like somewhere in, like it's a tricky thing to do. You don't want to have it by the septic ponds, because you know there's an image problem there with welcome to Cranbrook and here's our wastewater. I understand why it would take some work to figure out where the most appropriate spot is. So I'll be interested to see the results of this, because that entranceway isn't as clear cut as the other two. And could you comment on that, what you're thinking of, where to put this sign?
Great question, Councillor Brissett, through the mayor. Yeah, we've had actually over the course of time through the tourism master plan and just in general, the staff have had various discussions over the course of time on where a sign might be. I will agree with you that coming in from highway from Kimberley is a little more difficult than the other areas that we come from. All I can say to you is that as a team, we'll come back with multiple sites. We've already identified 3 or 4 sites that are from McPhee Bridge coming up into where the Wycliffe road veers off. And that's something that we'll bring back to council, and you guys will be able to make a decision on where you think that location is best fitted, right?
I'm just thinking another prickly issue to deal with, that's all.
Councillor Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is actually for Councillor Stetsky. I believe you were mayor when we had the sign installed by the Elizabeth Lake, and that was grant funded. Was it?
City funded.
City funded as well. Yeah, so I guess I'm wondering if you want to just give like a brief history of how that sign came about, and then also, I guess supplemental question to Darren is funding opportunities for this sign.
Thank you for the question, Mike Peabody through, or Councillor Peabody through the mayor. Yeah, I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought there for a second.
Funding options for the.
Oh, yes, okay, so before, the sign in, with Councillor Setsky, I think it was about 2014 or something like that. That sign, for finance was approximately about $200,000. There were some partners and other, people involved in that, but that was primarily, funded by the city. The next sign that we did was coming out from Fernie. That was 2022, 2023. Chris knew at the time, had led that project. Public Works had started it off. Very different scenario. They had gone through the college with some partners. The sign came in well under what the other sign had went through. So the short answer is it really depends on how you build out the model for building this. We have in the past applied through the tourism plan in 2023. We applied to REDIP which is the Rural Economic Development Infrastructure Program for wayfinding and signage, and we weren't successful. There are some challenges inside the wayfinding and signage space. We're not a resort municipality, so we tend to have to apply in grants that have broader kind of mandates, and we don't always win in those ones. So it is a bit of a challenge, and staff is aware of that. We've talked internally about some of the options where with the college and city studio, there might be some options there to work with post-secondary. It's similar to what we did with the welcome sign in 2023. The college was involved with it, and so were the students, from fabricating the sign to elements of it. So, what we'll do as staff is come back with a comprehensive or pretty good summary of what we think the options are, and then present that to council. Thanks.
Councillor Tetsky.
Yes, thank you. And so the reason that area was reconstructed, and like the sign itself, those rocks that are in place, was about $60,000. And that was, every rock was handpicked, and there's a legend that goes with it. You should look up the legend if you haven't read it. The other 140,000 was redesigning the entire area for parking, access, etc. And the challenge, well, from my perspective at the time, there was nowhere to get your photo taking that let you know you were in Cranbrook. And that was the best location to make sure that tourists could come, get information, and also get their photo taken with a welcome to Cranbrook sign. In terms of this one, I know you're going to explore options, but since this sign is about visiting Cranbrook, perhaps Visit Cranbrook could be an option for a partnership on the sign.
Yes, thank you for the question there, Councillor Setsky. Yes, through Mayor. Mike and I have met twice now in his first 2 weeks, so he might be getting a little overload with me, but we've definitely been talking about this, and it's great that Mike's here. Really excited to work with Mike and the folks at Visit Cranbrook, and this, I think, would be a great project for us to start working on together. So life's about timing, and the timing, I think, is pretty good, at least for our two organizations, to have a project that we can use to activate the tourism plan.
Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. So in terms of this sign, I think it's important to raise awareness of where our City of Cranbrook boundaries are. And so that might be important for residents and for visitors. So I think that's, part of the project. And I think we've had some conversations here and there that having more clear markings of our boundaries out that way will also perhaps be helpful with discussions with the Ministry of Transportation and Transit when we talk about highway speed through that corridor, through what is actually City of Cranbrook. So nowhere else in the city of Cranbrook are we driving 100 kilometers an hour. I don't think. We shouldn't be. So people might say, oh, what's the big deal about that? Why do you want to talk to the Ministry of Transportation and Transit? There's some developments out there that if we are able to decrease the speed limit, then that changes what's required from those developers. So that then has a tie to development and economic development. So just for members of the public who are wondering, why are you talking about a sign out that way? It's more than just a sign. So I think it's an important project and I look forward to the report coming back.
Councilor Papa.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Very good discussions. I'm all in favor. And I think we should maybe have some fun with this sign because Kimberly's been having fun with their sign for the last however long, right? Like fun this way, everything else this way, right? On your way to Wausau. You know, we might want to have a sign, welcome to Cranbrook Regional Hospital, Regional College, Business and Professional Hub of the Kootenays, and I don't know, 50 traffic lights, but something along those lines. Have some fun because, you know, then Kimberly might come back with a newer sign and then we'll might have to update ours sometime. But I think it's it also draws attention in all seriousness to what our community is about, as opposed to just how many trails and ski hills there are. So.
Thank you.
Councilor Graham, do you have a comment on the sign?
Sure. Might as well. Everybody else is. Yeah, I think location is important. Where it goes, and to stem off of what Councillor Ray says, it could help us in our battle with Modi on speed reductions. Like we want to encourage development out there. That could be highway corridor development. You know, that's kind of in the future plan. So if we can work on that and, you know, plant our sign where it needs to be, it just helps show that this is where we're growing and we have the opportunity to grow, and it's already, majority of it's already in city limits. So it's, you know, it's not like it's sprawl, it's we've got it. So let's utilize what we have.
Thank you. Further? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. The next item tonight is from the Information Technology Division of the Corporate Services regarding artificial intelligence policy number 40-904. We have staff on hand to give a report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In 2024, after the emergence of generative artificial intelligence, Council approved a policy to guide adoption and usage. The artificial intelligence policy before Council today replaces the generative artificial intelligence policy number 40-904 that was approved in 2024. Generative artificial intelligence is a class of AI that generates content such as images, text, and videos. AI has now progressed beyond what the policy was established for. This revised policy and procedure establishes how the city will adopt and use all variations of AI. It supports innovation and service improvements while ensuring AI use remains aligned with city values, privacy obligations, legal requirements, and public trust. The policy provides clear guidance on approved AI tools, responsible use, prohibited activities, human oversight, records management, and accountability. Thank you.
Thanks, Leon. Can I get a motion that Council rescind General Artificial Intelligence AI policy number 40-904/2024, and further that Council approve the newly revised Artificial Intelligence policy number 40-904. Mover, please. Councillor Bassett, Councillor Ray, discussion. Councillor Ray, Councillor Graham.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you very much for bringing this update to Council. You know, as a person who's taken the odd AI training here and there with other organizations, and it is kind of a scary new world. And I noted in the new policy, one of the items I think is about all AI software tools must be approved through our city IT. And I wonder if you could just briefly touch on that. So like for a layperson, if I'm working for organization X and I get a report from organization X and then I run it through my little whatever AI thing I've downloaded myself, I've kind of just given my organization's information to the world of AI. So maybe if you could just talk a little bit about that risk and why it's so important that oh,
Okay,
goodness.
that was our brief entertainment break, ladies and gentlemen. We'll back to the meeting.
Councillor Popup's just trying to get me to giggle hysterically again, but he is not going to be successful this time, maybe next time. Anyways, yeah, if you could just talk a little bit about that risk and why it's so important that all AI tools are approved, fully approved through our IT department.
No, absolutely, Councillor Ray to the mayor. The policy was, the focus of it was more to protect the information that is in the care of the city. A lot of these AI models learn by the information that we feed it. So for us, we take privacy concerns and city data. The care that we have for that is really important for us. So this was written with that in mind to ensure that we uphold the protection of the data that we have in our care. So it doesn't end up in wrong hands and train the models. And there are legislation that govern that as well.
Councilor Graham.
Yeah, thank you. I think, yeah, this is great, and it's something that will probably always have to be updating and adapting to. I have one question, and it's not quite related to this, but it's similar. Just how are we as a city integrating AI, or how are we combating AI for vulnerabilities in our systems, whether it be sewer, water, wastewater? Do we have any vulnerabilities? Have you identified them? And are we able to keep ahead of the curve?
Councillor Graham through the mayor, that's a very great question. We've got what I like to classify as a state-of-the-art firewalls that monitor traffic, inbound traffic through the city, as well as outbound. We've got what we call IDS, which is intrusion detection and prevention, and IPS, which is IDS and IPS, prevention and then detection as well. So these are the tools that we rely on because they have AI embedded in those functionalities. So we are fighting AI with AI, essentially. But those are the critical systems that we use. We also have layered security models. So if one fails to catch that, another layer behind it will do that. And we have the last line of defense as well that we use for such activities. Thank you.
Councilor Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. Leon, does this policy apply to individuals or companies being contracted by the city?
It does, yes. Thank you.
Okay, so if we have someone, let's say we seek legal counsel, they have to abide to this policy as well.
I think the definition there for authorized users was anyone that is representing the city.
Okay.
If you're working on behalf of the city, you're bound by the policy as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Let's test you. No. Thanks, Leon. Certainly, you guys have done an incredible job keeping us up to date. Certainly with the risks we're seeing, it's nobody's safe. Municipalities especially seem to be going after the lower levels of governments as well. But you guys have done an incredible job keeping us safe from the risks and keeping us up to date. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thanks again, Leon. Next up is from Engineering Development Services regarding the development variance permit at Shallow Mountain East regarding subdivision development servicing standards. Can I please have staff provide a brief overview of the report?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So we're going to do this as a bit of a joint here between Curtis and I. I'm going to speak a little bit about the process and be here to support Curtis as we co-authored this report. namely, the big thing that you may notice here, there's a slight change in the process for considering of development variance permits. Historically, the process has been when an application is received, staff automatically just prepares a notice, sends it out to the neighbors, we collect some feedback and bring a report back to council for decision. While that generally worked pretty good, it certainly at the time, if I go back in history, I recall some of the commentary was a lot of the reason we did that was, to kind of expedite things, make things happen faster, which is fine. But recently, as you know, we've seen a number of variances coming through for council consideration, which aren't delegated. But due to their nature, and they're getting much more complex, we were looking at a way to see what we could do in terms of process to see if it would help both council and staff make decisions, and also in consideration of resourcing. And looking at a number of other municipalities in our area and outside of BC, they do the development variance permit in a kind of a two-step process. We used to do this at the RDK back in the day when I was there as well, where we would receive an application, process it, and it would be brought forward to at that time the board or a council, and would either recommend the recommendation would be that either that council authorize a notice of intent to consider the development variance permit be sent out to adjacent property owners, or refuse the application. What this does is it kind of allows, well, it does a number of things, I guess. First of all, it allows council to see the application before notice goes out. And often in a smaller community like ours, things go out in the mail, and you're the first ones to get phone calls on, and often you're going, could be going, I don't know what you're talking about, right? So that'll help eliminate that. Two, because of the complexity of some of these and some of the staff work that goes into the report, this isn't a great example, and this is the first one we're testing it with, is that there's a lot of information to consider. There's a lot of things that council would look at, potentially ask us questions. So this process allows you to do that up front, and then allow you to decide we're going to send out notice, seek feedback from adjacent property owners as to whether or not the variance will impact them, or not consider the variance. And so this is the first one. It becomes a two-step process. So essentially 2 council meetings. So under normal circumstances, it's a 2-week cycle. We're required by legislation to send out notice within a 10-day window of council considering a resolution. So it fits well within a normal schedule. I mean, this being summer is a little different, but we thought from a staff level that would really kind of help, in a way, streamline the process. I mean, the other way could be argued that it was streamlined, but really it allows council to look at what's being proposed by somebody, and then make that consideration whether we want to send out notice, potentially riling up the neighbors for a decision that council may not even wish to proceed with. And so this is kind of our first test, and by no means is it written in stone. There isn't a set procedure for variances. We're just required under legislation. We have to provide certain notification in time before a council makes their decision. So if this feels like it's not going to work for yourselves, let us know. We'll go back to the old way, no problem. But this was sort of the first one that came in. It's a pretty significant variance. We've been talking about this at the staff level for a little while as to how we can modify some of our processes. And so that's why I just want to give you the background to sort of the difference in process, because it is a little different than what you would have seen. And then now I'll turn it over to Curtis, who can kind of get into the nitty gritty of what the actual variance itself is considering, and I'm here to support.
Thank you, Rob. Mayor and Council. So the city has received a development variance permit application to vary a number of subdivision standards out at Shadow Mountain on the east side. As the approving officer, I've issued a PLA in alignment with our bylaw, including on-site works and some off-site works. This is a fairly normal process for many developments. Some developments have more off-site works than others. Some have none at all. However, those different standards are laid out in the PLA, and I've attached that to the report. However, the variance itself seeks to not install a water meter for the Shadow Mountain development. it seeks to, where Parnaby Road is graveled, to only upgrade it to a 7-meter wide asphalt width and not to full city standards. The section of Parnaby Road that's paved is not wide enough to accommodate 2 lanes of traffic when it was installed. So I've asked for it to be updated to accommodate 2 lanes of traffic, have a yellow line painted and city streetlights. The developer only doesn't want to do any of that. The section of gravel road between Parnaby Road and the private development road, I don't know if this road really has a name at this point, but either Corral Boulevard or just a connector road. They only want to pave it 3.65 meters wide, which is just under a lane width in our bylaw. So that's a one-way road. Where in the PLA, it's been required that it be installed to a 7.3 meter width road to city standards. The developers provided a number of comments in their application letter, but also in an email attached. The biggest concerns were financial, given the size of development that they're doing. This is only one, call it a phase of development on the east side. There would be ability to either go smaller lots, or there's other phases other lots. The parent parcel subdivisions occurred, so there's a lot of different parent parcels out there. There's an ability to have quite a bit more development. A number of these lots, we've already had people contacting us wishing to subdivide further because they are fairly large. However, staff have considerable concerns with this proposal from an engineering standard standpoint, being that we are creating more lots out there that will be further developed, add more homes, more dwelling units. Not having a road, even though it would be paved the whole way, but not to an adequate width to accommodate 2 lanes of traffic, especially with more houses out there, that causes concern for confusion, but also head-on collisions. In saying that, staff believe these are fairly standard subdivision requirements. We don't believe we're out of line in requesting them. But if council sees differently, you're welcome to the variance, and that's the whole purpose of the process. However, if they were varied, it's either going to push it onto another developer later, or the city, which happened with the sewer system essentially, where the first phases were done on holding tanks, and then bringing everybody together to do it was difficult. A number of these standards probably should have been installed with the first phases back in the late 2000s. However, they weren't for some reason, along with a number of other things that weren't. So this was really the first item that's come to date. I have issued a number of PLAs in this development, in this area, with all the same conditions, but this is really the first one to come to this point. The Elk Crossing development, they had similar conditions. However, that development hasn't gone anywhere. The lot's been cleared and it's stalled. They also had other subdivision proposals in the site. Same situation, they haven't gone forward. And I did want to note, there are different line items with this variance request. However, the road ones are by far the most significant concern. And I did want to mention that even if council did approve the whole variance, as approving officer, I'd have to put on my hat as a appointment of council, but acting in the interest of the city. I'd have a very difficult time approving that. So council could look at approving certain items of approve the whole variance, but as approving officer, I'd have to look at it separately as well, and taking the interest of the public. You want to add, Rob?
And I'd just like to point out that staff has been in discussions with the applicant and the client, and we have indicated to them that, at least from a staff perspective, at a minimum, our expectation would be that variances could be granted, but we would still, at a minimum, would want to see a normal development agreement and the appropriate securities provided for all the works in the event that something went sideways and the works didn't get completed, we would actually have the securities in place to see those works through. Again, otherwise leaving us and or other developers or the homeowners potentially, like, as we note here, kind of on the hook, similar to the sewer situation. So, but they didn't seem to, I guess, they didn't bite on that. They just said proceed with the application as presented. So, and then provided the subsequent information regarding the financing. So that would be something that we would feel pretty strongly about, that at a minimum, if council goes with the alternative, that when it comes to consideration, that we would want to see at least a development agreement and 125% of the works value and security. So we are covering ourselves from the city's perspective, minimizing the liabilities.
Sorry, and one more item I would like to add that not overly mentioned in the report, but if the developer is required to install these works, any of the off-site works would be eligible for latecomers agreements. So they would have 15 years to collect a proportional amount back should other development occur in that time.
Thank you, gentlemen. Can I get a motion that council not authorize the notice of intent to adjacent property owners and occupiers within, is that right? Got the right one? Yeah, I'm sorry. Within 30.48 meters of the subject properties, and that the development variance permit 3090.20.2609 be refused. Mover, Councillor Bissett, Councillor Stetsky. Discussion. Councillor Popoff.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Were the developers, plural, well aware of our subdivision standards that you're referring to prior to all this? This isn't brand new news for them, is it?
Councillor Popoff, through the mayor. They are aware of the standards in the bylaw. We've had discussions and meetings with them. We've also confirmed in writing a couple of weeks ago, letting them know that this was our intent and background of the staff report coming forward. So they're well aware of the request and staff's position here tonight.
Thank you, but I mean, going back to when they were the purchasers, and I remember those pieces back then, were they aware of these, could they have become aware of these subdivision standards even back then? They're finding out for maybe now a little later in the game, but was all this information available to them should they have looked?
Councillor Popoff, through the mayor. I'm trying to recall when they might have become aware, because they have been owners and have been working through some of the development stuff on site for a number of years now. I think they've been owners of the site for almost, several years now, I think. Yes. Yeah. We did have meetings with them before they purchased and discussions of the works that would be required. I don't believe they are surprised at what we're requesting. I just don't believe they fit into their financial model.
Good, thank you.
Councillor Bissett.
Thank you. And this is one of the things, when you're a part of the city, you have to go with the city's rules. And I think that has been a continuing problem in that part of our city. And so I think it's very important that we, as a council, stand by staff on this, because some decisions have been made in the past that really have harmed the city as time goes on. And so I think the prudent thing is to support what staff have said, and in that way protect the city as we move forward and the development continues.
So, yeah, this is a real difficult issue. You know, again, this has been going on for 20 years out there. We're coming up on 20 years, I think, you know, since that subdivision was, and especially on that east side, you know, we kind of got some terms on the west side, but, you know, it's really impacting that east side. And, you know, I think it's going to be really, really difficult unless we get a number of developers that get together and agree this, you know, to take it all on at the same time, that we're going to see this thing moving the way we want to see it move. You know, it's unfortunate you know, that we can't come up with some kind of a solution, you know, where we had some kind of a surety or a guarantee. But let's be honest, when you want to gonna put up securities for all the work, they might as well do all the work, you know, really at the end of the day, right? So, yeah, Curtis, you know, I feel badly that you get put in these situations time and again. This is an inherited issue. You know, we inherited this project, this subdivision, and I get concerned because, you know, we're not anti-development. Make no mistake. But boy, the potential risk, you know, the more I look at it, you know, talking to Curtis, you know, Curtis is concerned about the risk to the taxpayer, you know, and that's his job. And I think that, you know, if there was a way we could get there somehow, and I don't know what it is, you know, because you're almost going from where you're coming in right to the very end, and there's nothing in the middle, as you know. So and you know, when you look at, you know, you're looking at certainly 15 years. You know, if you're going to be the add-on, right? That's 20 years now. So you know, they could be paying the freight really for latecomer. You know, was it 15 years on latecomer for latecomers?
Mayor Price, that is correct.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, how realistic is that? I don't know. And again, I've just gone over this, and if there was a way, but you know, certainly, you know, I don't want to put Curtis, our engineer, in a position where we made a decision to go against what he's saying, and then him to put his approving officer hat on, which supersedes, you know, any council decision or city's decision. You know, we'd look pretty foolish that way. So, comment, Curtis?
Yeah, it's going to say, yeah, no, thank you, Mayor Price, for that comment. But one option that it's not in the report, but just as we sit here and it's being discussed, is because there are multiple owners out there, it would impact our borrowing limit, but we could always look at local area service again, similar to what we did with the sewer. That could be an option if council wanted to explore or discuss with this developer. I just don't know how it would work with the one developer with the lands that they've got for sale now, but.
Oh, okay, yeah, just, yeah, you know what, that might be something, just, we'll see how this goes, you know, if this motion's approved, and maybe go back and say, you know, that is an option that the city will look at. So the same as the sewer thing, exactly, yeah. Councillor Stetsky?
Yeah, thank you. I think we should just keep things simple for the staff, simple for the developer, and sort of set the set the tone for the future by supporting this recommendation.
Councillor Beeple?
Thank you, Mayor. Looking at the letter at the the last page here, the developers saying that it's going to cost about 1.3, almost $1.4 million to construct this road. Does that seem about accurate? Like guesstimate?
Yeah. Councillor Peabody, through the mayor, it seems like it could be a fair number given what it costs us as part of our capital roads program to do surfacing of a road, given the length. I don't think it's out to lunch by any means. I haven't confirmed the numbers and dug down into it though.
And have you seen other like developments in Cranbrook have to invest this much in like road work before starting a development?
Yeah. Councillor Peabody, through the mayor, yes and no. Some development lands are easier than others to develop. Other ones that have come up over the years haven't moved forward and are still sitting vacant because of items like this. But Shadow Mountain's a great example of having to put in the water line to that asked the city having to put in the sewer main. It inherently comes with the property being so far away from services.
Yeah, and just clarify too, this area is not in our DCCs, is it?
Councillor Peabody, through the mayor, no, this wasn't included in the DCC's program.
Okay, and then just one last question, if I may.
Yep.
So with the like a local area service agreement, could we just like designate just the east side of the land, or would it have to be all of Shadow Mountain?
Councillor Peabody through the mayor. uh, It could just be the east side. It could just, the local area service would just be impacting the lands that were identified as part of that local area service petition. So it could just be the east side lands. It could just be the lands in Shadow Mountain. It could be the lands along Parnaby Road. It would have to be the discussion at the council table to define that area, or have the people petition the city to undertake the works.
And then depending on how that agreement is worked, that could be, borrowed over 30 years or possibly 20 or 30 years as opposed to 15, which is what the latecomers fees would be, correct?
Councillor Peabody through the mayor, yeah, we could borrow it over 30 years. We could, or any range shorter than that. Another option, the council, you could just have them pay up front too if you'd want. The full spectrum is an option.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. Is there any mechanism to extend that latecomers time period beyond 15 years?
Councillor Ray through the mayor, the 15 years is set in legislation. The developer can opt for a shorter period if they want, but 15 is the longest.
Very good. And just in terms of talking about a local area service agreement, I think we would want to be mindful of the tax burden that folks are already feeling due to the local area service around the sewer line. That's a very front and present feeling out there in terms of that cost burden. So I would just advise caution in terms of looking at layering that with another local area service. I think the suggestion around letting the residents approach the city if they're interested would probably be the better route for that. But I think I would be very cautious about that because of the existing LAS that's already there and that it's quite costly.
Councillor Ray through the mayor, no, that is a very fair concern especially with the existing homeowners and individual lot owners. I mean, one option could be in defining that area. It could just be the developers, the 2 or 3 of them on that side that approach the city, and those are the parcels that are identified. But again, the concern with the local area service is that if it is over 30 years and they subdivide, that would carry on to those individual homes as well. Something that would have to be thought of.
Anything further, council? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Curtis. Rob. Last item of new business is from Public Works regarding replacement of the Western Financial Place compressor. Tony on hand to give us an overview of this report.
Yeah, so some background. So compressor number 1 is part of the refrigeration and cooling system serving Western Financial Place. Facility staff have reported the compressor has experienced ammonia leak through the shaft seal, and what at the time of this report was removed from service due to operational concerns. So facility maintenance contractor have recommended a complete rebuild of the unit. As a result, the facility is currently operating on a single compressor. So according to facility operations staff's continued operation with only 1 compressor significantly impacts the facility's ability to maintain ice temperatures and provide adequate cooling for the arena, pool, and building systems, particularly during the summer operations. The compressor rebuild had previously been identified as a future capital requirement. However, no funding was included within the approved 2026 budget. Public Works has therefore established capital project FAC 0122 to facilitate the repair and seeking council approval to proceed. So budgetary impact. So the estimated cost to complete the rebuild is between $73,000 and $145,000, depending on the condition of the compressor being replaced. So basically, the condition of the core that they pull out, if it's in good shape, we get a higher value for it. And yeah, so the facility reserve currently has limited available funding. Finance identified several approved 2026 facility projects funded through the facilities reserve that have not yet commenced, and Public Works is recommending the delay of the WFP lighting components funded at 90,000 and the WFP squash refurbishment funded at 68,000 to fund this compressor project.
Thanks, Tony. Can I get a motion that council approve the creation of capital project FAC 0122 Western Financial Place Compressor Number 1 rebuild and authorize funding in the amount not to exceed $145,000 funded through the deferral of the 2026 Western Financial Place lighting components project $90,000 and the 2026 Western Financial Place squash court refurbishment project $68,000 in order to undertake the emergency rebuild of compressor number 1 at Western Financial Place. A mover, please, Councillor Lissette. Councillor Ray. Discussion. Councillor Stetsky.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question. So what was the lighting components project?
Thank you, Councillor Stetsky through the mayor. Yeah, so what that is so the existing lighting control system, the company that actually supports it has actually gone into receivership. So we had budgeted some funding in there to start moving or designing a new system. So, you know, there are still parts available. So we just felt that was a lower risk item that we could put off.
Councillor Papa.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Since how Area C doesn't contribute financially to ongoing operations for Parks and Recreation Services, seriously, I think we should ask them if they want to pay for this. They're not contributing on an annual basis, as we all know. They have on occasional one-offs, and we've had Memorial Arena, and then some other times that, you know, they did some contributions. This might be one of those, or we could just, hey, this is what the costs are. It's an emergency, and we greatly appreciate you contributing to this.
Interesting suggestion. Yeah, it's worth having a discussion with the regional district for sure. Anything further? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Tony. Okay, we have 2 administration updates tonight. The first one is from Public Works regarding the 2025 annual drinking water report, and then also the Phillips Reservoir and source levels. We have Jason front and center on this one. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you.
You'll be a real popular guy here in the next few weeks, I think.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yeah, just a couple little updates for everybody. So yeah, the 2025 annual drinking water report. This is mandatory by the Drinking Water Protection Act. That we have to have this done by water purveyors. All have through the province has to do this, as well as provide this to the drinking water officers. So. Just a couple highlights that I wanted to point out for the report was more on the consumption side, which will kind of tie into my next update there. Typically, you know, June, July, August, and September, those are our highest water consumption months. That's just historical. But what I really wanted to point out was the annual Phillips flow, so the water that's coming out of the Phillips Reservoir. So as you can see, 2024 was pretty high, but 2025 we actually seen a significant reduction in water consumption. So I believe the hard work that city staff is doing, the water ambassador along with bylaw and whatnot, it's making an impact. All the communication we're putting out there, so that's a plus. So any questions on the annual report before I go to source levels? Okay, this is what everybody's here for. Yeah, so currently, as of the writing of the admin report, which was July 6th, Phillips Reservoir is still spilling, really good flows coming in. Today, it is still spilling, not quite as much, but it is still spilling. As you can see in the graphs, our creek levels are continuously dropping. So that is something that we will be monitoring very closely. So those graphs that you see in the report there, that's just really measuring the depth of the water that's in the creeks. Okay. So going on to, yeah, the creek levels, they are holding, but they are increasingly going down. Precipitation. So, you know, annually we are seeing we're in the average median range since I looked on the website of the province there in 1902. They've been recording precipitation out at the airport there. So we are in that, you know, regular average median since that time, but wanted to note that within the last 30 days, we've had less precipitation than last year. So though we've had a pretty wet spring, we are starting to dry up. So right now, our region, so that's it, the whole East Kootenay region, we're currently in a level 0 of a drought, so that's normal or wetter than normal conditions. However, the forecast, what we've been experiencing for the last week and plus going into the next 14, where we are seeing some high temperatures. Some weather models are showing some good precipitation this week and others are showing minimal. So we will really know more by the end of this week of how we're sitting. And then currently right now we are in stage 1, so that's just our regular one. But if we do not get that precipitation and our creek levels are continuing to drop, we will look at going into a stage 2 sometime in August. And that's all I got. Any questions?
Councilor Graham.
Yeah, thank you. So just like we are in mid-July, so we should be experiencing high temperatures. Is this out of the ordinary, or is this is a standard summer, correct?
Good question, Councillor Graham, through the mayor. Yeah, this is a typical summer that we've been experiencing so far. We did get it. What's really benefiting us is the amount of precipitation that we got late fall. We did have a pretty solid snowpack. We've had a pretty wet spring, so the whole East Kootenay region is looking at really good shape for a drought and water scarcity. I am part of the Kootenay Boundary Drought Working Group. We just met last week. The Okanagan's getting hit pretty hard. They're pretty hot, less water, but our region right now is looking pretty good. But we're going to see more hotter temperatures in end of July and into August as we typically do.
So Jason, kind of the forecast for the next month is 30 plus and no rain. So the spillway, do you gauge anything on the spillway? I mean, as long as it's going over the spillway, we're doing fine. But you know, when it hits the spillway, is that a trigger for you for stage 2, or should we consider that this year, based on the forecast with the heat and no precipitation?
Yeah, there's Mayor Price. There's several factors that we take into account. The water level in the Phillips Reservoir, spillway or negative. That's one of the factors that we use. But you know what we're seeing in water consumption, we take that into account as well. The creek flows, the drought conditions, and the weather forecast. So I wouldn't say the spillway is the main trigger. In the bylaw, it's worded that when it hits, I think 80%. That will go in stage 2, or if the creeks are not keeping up with consumption. So as long as the creeks aren't keeping up with consumption, we have that ability to go into a stage 2.
Okay. Also, so Jason, just thank you so much. I know in the last couple of years, you know, we've been pretty nervous going in, and the decisions you made, I certainly think, you know, our residents got to be really happy with the decisions you've been making. You know, we see so many communities that they just shut her down, and you know, you got brown lawns, and yeah, we've been pretty fortunate around here. So thank you very much for what you've been doing.
Well, I think
really appreciate it. Next up, for Fire and Emergency Services regarding the 2026 Q2 report. Scott.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Price, through the council. As the city's fire chief, I also want to thank Jason and the Public Works Department, the water ambassador, for keeping the water in the reservoir in case we need it. So I'm here tonight just to bring the second quarter report for Cranbrook Fire and Emergency Services. As we cross over into summer, I just wanted to kind of round up what happened in the city during the spring and just dump a little data and then have a reminder for everybody in the community about summer. So we did do 543 calls in quarter two, which is down 9% from the first quarter of the year. With respect to fire and rescue calls, there was 157 in that large category. Holding steady at about 30% of our call volume for the city. So with 5 structure fires, 40 outdoor fires, 67 alarms, and so on and so forth, we moved through our call volume with quite a broad spectrum of call types, but we are adequately positioned to deal with that kind of risk in the community at this time. Pre-hospital care calls were 385 calls for service, which is again 70% of the calls, and that's pretty standard across time in the community. It changes from quarter to quarter, but not very much. Significantly different this second quarter from the first was only 74 overdose calls as opposed to 119 in the winter season. So I did speak at the last quarterly update about just the toxic drug supply entering the community over the winter, and then we didn't have that same condition reproduce itself in the spring. And so we're thankful for that because it gave everyone a little bit of room to breathe. After that, we had very normal call volumes with respect to seizures, chest pains, strokes, falls and injuries, things like that. They stayed the same. But what I will say is that the ongoing trend of the breadth of calls that we're dealing with and the frequency that we're doing it is something that as a service we need to look at. We're continuing to adjust our staffing system and models and how we deploy ourselves to calls because the risk profile for the community is continuing to evolve, and we're seeing a lot more calls in the downtown area, which is challenging at times, just with the population that's downtown and then the citizens and the businesses that are alongside us while we're doing that work. And so we are working with our partners across the community to deal with this, and the RCMP and bylaw services, but we are seeing challenges with that work with all the spectators that we have. Additionally, as we move into summer, we have seasonal changes that we're moving towards. So I just want to take a moment to talk to council about, as we move into summer, we might have a reservoir full, but we're having forests that are drying out quickly. And so we are seeing some challenges with fires in the area. We had one just south of town a couple of days ago that's currently being held, which is great news. I was happy to hear that today. And then they are seeing some challenges up near the Premier Ridge with a fire out there too. So we're definitely at that stage of summer where as a fire service, we're trying to stay as ready as we can, but we are still doing 6 calls a day inside city limits, and so we don't have a pause button to just wait and hope things go well. So we're working on that, but I do want to ask council and get the message out to community to just be aware that good information from the Emergency Operations Center and the provincial programs is really, really important for us to do a good job. And so the community can do a lot of things in terms of arming themselves with information, but what I would suggest is that they do that through the official channels, and the best, fastest way to get good official information is through Voyant Alert, and that's part of our regional emergency program. And so you can get to that through our contact button on the city's website, or you can do it through the regional district, or you can just go to an app store and download the Voyant Alert app. So, and that's my quarterly report for the spring, and I look forward to the summer. Yes.
Thanks, Scott. Councillor Stetsky.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I know it's not directly your responsibility, but the one that's being held is the one that was called Moy Falls originally.
That's correct.
Okay, that's good news.
Very good news.
I'm quite worried about that one.
Yep.
Anything further, Council? Thanks, Scott. Hope you have a quiet summer.
Thank you.
Moving on to correspondence, we have 3 items tonight. We'll walk through each item here. First up is from the Cranbrook Kimberley Hospice Society regarding a request for land donation. Council has a few options to consider here. I've got actually something revised. So basically, option one would be a staff report back. Option two would be hospice attended delegation. And option three would be if somebody has another possible resolution or a possible option, somebody want to make a recommendation. Councillor, I'll go to Councillor Popoff, yeah, this time, yeah.
Yes, number one, please.
Number one. Can I get a motion that council receive the correspondence from George Watson, Cranbrook Kimberley Hospice Society Chair of the board, received June 26, 2026 regarding the request for land donation. And further, that council directs staff to prepare a report for council's consideration at a future meeting with community input options, lists of potential land options and values for each, including potential future tax revenues. Councillor Stetsky seconds that. Discussion. Any further? All in favor? Opposed? Okay. You'll move with that on the staff, Mark?
Yes, thank you, Mayor President.
Thank you. The next item is from the Columba Lodge regarding a letter of support for their federal and the Columbia Basin Trust grant applications. Can I get a motion? The council received the correspondence from Terry Barber, the Cristoforo Columba Lodge number 14, dated July 3rd, 2026, regarding a letter of support, and further, that council approve release of the draft letter of support to the Cristoforo Columba Lodge number 14 as presented. Mover, please. Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Bissett. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That's carried. And the final item is from Christine Boyle, Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs, regarding effects of budget 2026 on current housing funding programs. That was a response to a letter that I sent on council's behalf of our concerns with the budget, and she responded with a little bit of an explanation. Anyways, would council like to discuss or receive for information? Receive for information. Thank you. That brings us now to Mayor and Council's reports. Let's start with Councillor Stetsky.
Thank you, Mayor. Just two items. It was really great to have a tour of the Cozy Bear Lodge and see that they are getting close to actually being able to make it home for a number of seniors. So positive news, absolutely moving in the right direction. Coming up, of course, it is summertime, and summertime, the Fisher Peak Society hosts the outdoor concerts and dancing every Thursday. And so this Thursday, July 16th, the two performers are Pretty for the People and Beckham's Bar. So there'll be lots of dancing this Thursday. If you enjoy music and you enjoy dancing, please come down to Rotary Park on Thursday evening.
Thank you, Councillor Peabody.
Nothing to report.
Councillor Bissett.
So I have an inquiry from myself regarding the garden beds. As I take my dogs out for walks in the morning, and I was observing the our public works team working for days upon end to try to remove the weeds from the garden bed over by it's off the highway by the eagle statue, that one. And looking at the weeds there, I mean, it's a matter of time before they're back in. And that was at least 6-person days. And I started thinking about, well, like, I think we have too many my opinion, we have a lot of garden beds to maintain that are filled with weeds. And I think it needs to be reviewed. The design of those beds needs to be reviewed with an idea of minimizing the workload for weeding, because staff really can't keep up with that. And I think there's ways to make it as attractive with alternative uses. So for example, with that bed, there's a bunch of low-lying roses. Well, most people, this is on the highway. So you're driving by at a decent clip, not 100K, but still 60. And I mean, you see big trees. The landscaping that's happened down by the mall is quite impactful. You see the large trees. But as far as small garden stuff, not so much. And I think we can do something to put, like I asked them, so are you going to put landscape fabric down on this and cover it with wood chips? No. Okay, so like if I owned that, I'd be having a strategy to stop weeding it. And I think that's what we have to do as a city. And I guess my request, and see if council also agrees, is that we ask Public Works to review their workload as far as weeding of public garden beds with a look to increasing efficiencies and decreasing the amount of work that has to be done on maintaining those and keeping them looking decent for the community. So is that okay with council to request staff? Because that is some work for them, but I think it will be work that could pay off.
I think that's a great great observation to start with, and I think a really good recommendation.
Okay.
It's all about efficiency. Councillor Peabody, comment on that?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, in front of my business downtown, we have a planter that has like an invasive weed. I don't know if it's an invasive weed, but there's a weed in there. And yeah, there's been a few times where staff have had to come and try to remove it. And they said it was a losing battle because the root of that weed can almost go down about 1 meter. So they can remove what's on the surface, but they'll never get what's down below. But what they said, which was interesting, is that it's similar to bylaw, it's complaint driven. So they're not actively going out removing the weeds. People are complaining about the weeds, so then they're responding to the complaint. So it might just be, no, or I don't know if our policy, but how it's. I don't know if we should be responding to complaints about weeds in the planters. That might be the issue as well.
I think we can leave that in the hands of the CAO and then take to staff at their next meeting. Sure.
I would say no, that we do need to, we want those beds to look decent. And we need to look at ways to have that happen with a minimal amount of physical labor.
Make a motion.
So that's what I would like to see, is that staff review the workload for maintaining garden beds with an eye to decreasing workload.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Popoff. Discussion, all in favor? Thank you. Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. I've just got a couple of inquiries. So one is a follow-up from our last meeting on the fencing project around the cenotaph. So I forgot to highlight at our last meeting, as lots of people know in the community, this year is the 100th anniversary of the Legion. So it's just very timely in terms of the cenotaph fencing project. So I don't know if we have an update on that project for today, or if not, maybe we could have an update at our last meeting of July.
So Councillor Ray, through the mayor, is I know that project was on the list and with the intention to be done this fall. Whether it's gone out for bids or I can give you timelines, I don't think so yet, but I do know the intent is to have it done for the fall.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Yeah, I just wanted to highlight again, it's just particularly timely because it is the 100th anniversary of the Legion being established in Canada. And then the other inquiry I have was I had a meeting with one of our local history advocates, and we took a walk to the old cemetery and then a bit into the new cemetery, maybe an old part of the new cemetery. So I really appreciate the good work that management and staff have done on the, I think it was a policy and procedure around our cemetery fees. And like that was very important work. And we've had that come back, I think, as well for a slight update. So I really appreciate that work. So this request would be to build on that good work. So for management's consideration, and as we get ready for the 2027 budget process, just some real low hanging fruit in terms of the appearance, particularly of the old cemetery, but a bit on the new side as well. So we have signs there that are on the fence that the lettering is peeling off of, and they're really illegible. Like you really cannot read what is there. And so it looks poorly kept up. So if not in terms of doing, at least let's start planning for the next budget process to have those signs just be spiffed up so they're legible. Doesn't have to be fancy. There was positive feedback from this resident about the mowing that has occurred, more mowing than in the past in the old cemetery, but there's like some whipper snippering that could be done. So if anybody has time to have a look at the old cemetery and take their whipper snipper, that would be great. A request around dust control on the gravel road between the old cemetery and the new cemetery where the gravel trucks go. So just, I'm not sure if we have that sort of regularly on our to-do list. And if there might be an opportunity to put a 30-kilometer speed limit on that road. It sounds like people, the big trucks mostly slow down, like when they see people, they're certainly slowing down. But yeah, just to try to have the cemetery be a respectful community space. So just for management's consideration, yeah, some low hanging, quick and easy changes we can hopefully make. Thank you.
Yes.
Councillor Papa.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just want to recognize BC Housing for having that public open house last week, as well as some of the operational staff that were there as well. Given it was a Friday evening on a nice hot summer day, there was still a pretty good turnout of residents there asking questions and looking at all the information boards that were there. And I was encouraging them to, let's do this maybe in an April or an October where you'll probably get even more turnout that way. But it was really good to see that they were there. And then of course the following day we had a tour of the Cozy Bear. So good on them.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Graham.
Nothing to report.
I have nothing to report as well. So that brings us to the close of the meeting. Can I get a motion to adjourn, please? Councillor Ray, Councillor Bissett, all in favor, opposed? That's